everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Elliot Webber and welcome to episode 3 of BTCC What If, the series on my channel where we take certain moments or certain things that happened in the BTCC world and we see what would happen if it played out differently. Of course, if you haven't checked out last week's episode, which is What If Ford stayed for 2001, go check that out. Or if you haven't watched the opening episode of the first episode, What If Hybrid was axed for 2024, go and check that out. I will be creating a playlist eventually once this video is hopefully up on Friday, which is today if you're watching it, or whenever you're watching it. I will be making a playlist of all my episodes once they all come out in the next few weeks. So episode 3, well, if you missed last week's episode, then you wouldn't know, but episode 3 is what if Ash Sutton and Josh Cook stayed at MG beyond 2016. So let's get straight into this. Yes, guys, that is right. We are going to be looking at what if Ash Sutton and Josh Cook stayed at MG beyond 2016. Now, first off, we have to figure out how long this lineup is going to stay at MG. Well, first off, I'm going to say this. MG will remain as a manufacturer team until the end of 2019. So we are going to do it until the end of 2019. Of course, that's when the MG car left. Of course, MG as a manufacturer left at the end of 2017. Of course, as we know, in 2016 and 2017, the MG team was Triple Eight Engineering or Triple Eight Racing, of course, a team that is unfortunately no longer with us. In 2016, it was, I believe, bought out by Team BMR, Warren Scott, which, of course, at the time, 2016 was the first year of Subaru in the BTCC, as BMR were the Subaru team. They basically used MG as a sort of a B team or a junior team to Subaru. And, of course, in 2016, their lineup was Ash Sutton and Josh Cook. Josh Cook, who would be starting his second year in the British Touring Car Championship in 2016, and Ash Sutton would be making his first outing in a BTCC car, who, of course, moving up from the Renault Clio Cup, which he won. So, of course, as we know from the 2016 season, Ash Sutton had what could possibly be one of, if not the greatest rookie seasons of all time. I definitely think it's up there, one of the best of the NGTC era, in my opinion. Ash, who, of course, took multiple podiums in his rookie year, took a maiden win in just his 15th race in his BTCC career, race 3 at Croft in 2016. Technically had another one. He did technically win again at Silverstone, but that was taken away due to disqualification. So, a race win for Ash Sutton. Unfortunately, not any race wins for Josh Cook. He wouldn't get his first win until 2018 with Power Max Racing in real life. But yeah, what would happen if they stayed beyond 2016? So let's move on and start with 2017. So for the 2017 season, of course, we know what the lineup is going to be. It's going to be Ash Sutton and Josh Cook. What car will they use? Well, I think for 2017, once again, they would use the MG6, the car that had been used at that point from 2012 onwards to the present at the time. So I think another year or two with the MG6 I think would just do enough, as I think in 2016, I think with the lineup, the car was fairly successful despite only the one win. But yeah, so that would be the car. However, how well would the team do? How well would the drivers do as well? That's what we're really here to figure out. So as a team, I think an overall of 3, maybe 4 race wins, and I think only one of them would come on merit, as in only one of those would come that wasn't a reverse grid race. And I think all of those wins would come from Ash Sutton. I think Ash, as we know, in real life in 2017, became the champion, won his first of currently 3 championships, soon to be 4 at time of recording. In 2017, he had a phenomenal year. His second season, and he won the championship in a Subaru. So, yeah, I think all of the 3-4 wins that MG, I think, would come from Ash Sutton, and I think only one of them would come on merit, and I think it would be at a track like Snetterton or Croft, a track that Ash Sutton tracks that Ash Sutton goes well at. More or less, I actually think the one on merit would be Snetterton, as I think Ash goes there a little bit better than he does at Croft, in my opinion. And I think as well, the MG, I think, has always gone well around Snet. I don't know what it was, but when Plato was there, when Sam Tordoff was there, they always seem to have some type of edge at Snetterton. Again, that could be because Jason Plato is just that good around Snet. But yeah, I think on merit from a race 1 or race 2, Ash Sutton would win at least one. And then the other wins, I think, again, would come from Ash Sutton. And I think those would come from reverse grid races. So yeah, in my opinion, Ash Sutton would take let's say 4 wins. I think Ash would take 4 wins. And with some consistency, I think he would just break into that top 10, maybe push in 8th or 9th potentially. But as a championship contender, I don't think Ash would have done that. As for Josh Cook, well, as I say, he'd have to wait a little bit longer for his maiden BTCC win. Unfortunately, I don't see Josh Cook winning races in that MG, as I do think, whilst, yes, Ash would be winning, I don't think that the MG would be good enough. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. But for Josh Cook, I think podiums would do. He would have some great races around Thruxton, I should say. I think that's where Cook would perform at those high speed tracks that he seemingly loves. Of course, he's the king of Thruxton now at time of recording. Multiple race wins there, multiple podiums, and I do think podiums on merit again would come from Josh Cook at tracks like Thruxton and Silverstone. But yeah, again, for Josh Cook, it wouldn't be any race wins. And I think with those podiums, he would be in the top 12, just breaking into the top 10, in my opinion. As for MG as a team, I think mid-table, upper mid-table, maybe 5th or 6th in the team's championship is where they'd realistically be fighting for. But yeah, I think overall, if they were to take 4 race wins and a few podiums and battling mid-table, I think that would be a really good second season with that lineup. Now, let's move on to 2018. So, the 2018 season, what would officially in real life be the first year without MG as a manufacturer since 2011, and the first NGTC era without MG. Of course, a real shame to lose MG, of course, a manufacturer that has done so well in BTCC. But yeah, when I talk about real life, we talk about what if they continued on, and of course they would continue on, keeping Sutton and Cook. Obviously, that's the point of the video. So yeah, for 2018, once again, and hear me out, for the last year in 2018, this would be the last year that they would use the MG6, as I think MG, of course, in real life, their production line, their car line, they were bringing out new cars at this point. Of course, one of them would be the MG3, and I will move on to that when we get to 2019. But yeah, so I think 2018 would be the last year of the MG6 before getting a new car for their final season. So yeah, again, we've got to talk about performance-wise and how the drivers would do. In terms of race wins, it would not be more than last year in 2017. In fact, it would be less, but it still would be some race wins. For Ash Sutton, he's taking both of those again. I could see Ash Sutton taking 2 race wins for MG in 2018. One of those would be on merit. I think we had a lot of crazy races in 2018, if you remember. Of course, 2018 being the year that we had 17 different race winners, one of the most open championships, you could say, one of the most competitive BTCC championships ever, one of my personal favourite seasons ever as well as a spectator watching. As a Honda fan, maybe not, as we didn't really win that much in 2018. But yeah, for Ash Sutton, only 2 race wins. Both of those will come from him at MG. And as for Josh Cook, I think it would be an even worse year for him. I think he'd struggle to get on the podium. I think he would be really frustrated that he's getting constantly beaten by Ash Sutton in the same team. But I do think more podiums again, more reverse grid appearances, and I do think he would start in those reverse grid races. He would be pushing the top 10 almost every race, but yeah, unfortunately for Josh Cook, that first win will still have to wait. But yeah, as for Ash Sutton, where would he be in the championship? With those 2 race wins, I think, again, he'd be just on the brink of the top 10, maybe just in it. And as for Josh Cook, a few podiums would mean that he would once again be in the top 15 and maybe pushing the top 12. So yeah, 2018 I think would be the worst year of the 3 years that this would happen. So yeah, now let's move on to the final season, and I think probably the best season statistically, in my opinion, in this what if scenario. So let's move on to the final season, 2019. So the final season in this what if scenario, what if Sutton and Cook stayed at MG, and technically what if MG stayed beyond 2017 as well for a few years. So 2019, the final season. Now, again, in case I haven't mentioned it at the start of the video, the reason why I put 2019 is because this was the last year of the MG car in BTCC, the last time we've seen an MG in the British Touring Car Championship. Unfortunately, I'd love to see him back, but I think with, of course, them now being a Chinese-owned team, I think the only time we'll see MG in touring cars is if you're watching TCR China at the minute. Hello to any Chinese viewers if you're watching this. But anyway, so what would happen if MG stayed into 2019? So a new car, as I mentioned in the previous clips. So their new car, I think, of course, dropping the MG6, which by 2019 would be almost 7 years old at that point. So what car would they use? Well, I'm going to say that the car they'd use for one season would be the MG3. Now, again, hear me out. Whilst there was a second generation of an MG6 brought out in 2016, I think MG would want to use the later model, and that being the MG3. I think MG would have want to have promoted the MG3 more than the MG6 as a family car. Of course, 4 doors, of course. You could try and fit a 2-litre engine. Of course, I think the biggest engine the MG3 has is a 1.5, I believe, but do correct me if I am wrong. But yeah, I think the MG3 would make more sense performance-wise. It's much smaller than the MG6, so I think performance-wise, weight-wise, I think it could work, and I think it could be a much better car than the MG6. And that is why, performance terms, I am predicting this 2019 season to be MG's best, aside from the Plato years where, of course, he was in the championship fight every single year. But in terms of this, in this scenario video, this would be their best year, which is why I'm predicting 5 race wins from MG, 3 of them coming from Ash Sutton, and 2 of them finally coming for Josh Cook. Josh Cook would finally take his first and second BTCC career wins with this team in this scenario. And of course, again, Triple H would live on until the end of this scenario. So this would still be Triple H MG. Yeah, I think with the new car, a new engine as well, I think would help. I do think this would be Ash Sutton's best performance in this car. As same for Josh Cook, who would finally get 2 race wins under his belt. Both of those would come from Thruxton rounds. I think he would win races 1 and 2. I think he would do a double at Thruxton in that MG. As for Ash Sutton, I think, again, as I mentioned, 3 race wins. I think he would be ultra consistent. However, I think, again, we have to look at the real life season. We have to take certain aspects of the real life season to merge this together with the what if scenario. I think with the pure dominance of the BMWs in 2019, and with the fact of Dan Camish's amazing performances as well in the latter half of 2019, which would help him to almost winning the championship that year, I think Ash Sutton would not be a legitimate championship contender, but I think he would be best of the rest, aside from Camish, Jordan and Turkington, where I think he would finish P4 in the championship, thus giving him his best championship finish to date. As for Josh Cook, and with the new speed of this new MG, I think he would, with 2 race wins, he would be P6, P7 in the championship. His best season to date, MG's best season to date, where they would be pushing P3 in the championship. I think they'd just be too far behind MG and too far behind BMW and Honda. But I do think MG would definitely be up there fighting in the Teams Championship. And I forgot to mention the Manufacturers Championship. In the Manufacturers Championship in 2019, I definitely think they'd beat Toyota. Definitely think they'd beat Subaru, which in 2019 was Subaru's last year as well. So I think MG would definitely be third, pushing for second above Honda, where BMW, I think, would just take the Manufacturers Championship. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is my what if scenario of what if Ash Sutton and Josh Cook stayed at MG. I tried to keep it a bit grounded and a little bit realistic, even though, of course, it's a what if scenario. Anything could happen. For all I know, if they stayed, Sutton could have won every single race in 2017, 18 and 19, and he could have, had already 100 wins by now. But yeah, that is my what if scenario. Well, let me know your thoughts, guys, in the comments below. What are your predictions for this scenario? What do you think would happen if Ash Sutton and Josh Cook stayed at MG? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, be sure to stick around for next week, because I think next week is going to be another great video. What if Matt Neal went to Volvo for the 1999 BTCC season? Let me know your thoughts for that video next week in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching. If you're new around here, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And of course, as I mentioned, share with your mates, because it does help my channel grow, because we are firmly on the road to 200 subscribers. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.